This morning we are continuing our series about fireproof faith. Actually, this morning we're wrapping up our series in fireproof faith. And if you want to go ahead and get turned to Daniel chapter 3, that's where we're going to be. We're going to be camping in Daniel chapter 3 this morning. And what we've been talking about through this series is the journey of faith that Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael took. We know them mostly as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The journey that they took from living in Jerusalem and Judah to being taken captive by the Babylonians, and the journey of faith that they took to getting to what we're going to talk about this morning and facing the fiery furnace. And in this series, what we focused on is not just the fiery furnace, but we wanted to focus on what gave these men that type of faith where they could face that fire, where they could look into the depths of that fire and go, that's fine. I will face that fire before I deny my God. And how can we have that type of faith? The first week, we talked about being grounded in what we believe. We talked that these young men were grounded in what they believed. And how to have fireproof faith, we have to be grounded in what we believe. We have to be grounded in our identity as Christians. We have to be grounded in the Word of God. And we have to be grounded in our relationship with Jesus. The next week, we talked about taking a stand. And we talked about how when you take a stand, and you take the type of stand that God wants you to take, and you take it in the way that God wants you to take it, through meekness and humility, and how God will bless you. And I used the analogy that week. I'm gonna circle back to this. I used an analogy that week about when I trained canines, and how when we taught canines to do bite work, that at the end of the training session, no matter what, no matter how scary it got for the dog always won. And it made that dog believe in itself, going, I always win. Many of you have heard on the news that a couple weeks ago, or last week I believe, there was a DeKalb County police officer that was murdered on a traffic stop. There was also a canine officer that was shot by that same guy. And through some canine channels that I still maintain with, I've received some details about how that went down. And apparently what happened is that dog was sent after the suspect and grabbed hold of him and was holding this guy. And that's when the suspect shot the dog and shot him in the face. The bullet went in his eye and out of his ear. The dog never let go. Even after being shot, the dog never let go. And because and the dog survived it, the dog lived. But because that dog believed he was going to win that fight, he didn't let go, and it saved the life of the officers that were with him. Because had he let go, that perpetrator could have taken the life of another officer. But because that dog believed that he was going to win, he didn't let go. And that's why God sends us through trials and tribulations. And God allows us to take stands and then allows us to win, blesses us through that. And that strengthens our faith that we have that fireproof faith. And I remember talking about that and then getting that, on how that dog didn't let go and saved the lives of those officers around him. Last week, we talked about how important it is to belong to a body and to be active and to be in fellowship with a body. We talked about it and we lived it. And then also you have been living it throughout this week. I've received a card, and the Paces have been sick and down under the weather, and they wanted me to share this card with them about y'all coming and visiting and loving on them this week. It says, we would like to thank you, our church family, for your phone calls, your love, your prayers and support in our time of sickness. We are so blessed to belong to a body of such loving people. And we are grateful to God for you and thankful for your kindness. The Pace family, 2018. We talked about belonging and how belonging to a family, belonging to a church will strengthen your faith and give you that type of fireproof faith. And y'all live it. Y'all lived it this week. Praise Jesus. Give yourselves a hand for that, church. This week, we're going to actually talk about facing that fire. And we're going to look at a couple of elements of what it's like to face that fire, what it's like to actually have that fireproof faith, what fireproof faith actually is. And so we're going to be in Daniel chapter 3, and I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what's going on in this chapter, because it's a lot of words, and we're going to paraphrase some of it, and I'm going to tell you the story. So basically what happens is Nebuchadnezzar, the king, decides he's going to build this golden image. The Bible describes it as being 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide, so it's probably something similar to an obelisk, something kind of narrow at the bottom and really tall. A golden image that he set up. And he tells all of the people that are in his court, his magistrates and the people that work under him, he says, listen, we're going to dedicate this image, and I'm going to have all types of musical instruments playing. And when you hear the symphony and you hear all these musical instruments, everybody at this dedication service is going to bow down and they're going to worship. And if anybody does it, they're going to be thrown in the fiery furnace. And so what happens is apparently, we get this through some contextual clues, but Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael don't show up for this thing. And because what happens next is, in verse 8, it says, therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Jews. They spoke and said to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made the decree that everyone hears the sound of the horn, the flute, the harp, the lyre, the psaltery, and the symphony, and with all types of music shall fall down and worship the gold image. And whoever does not fall down will be cast into the midst of the fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the gold image which you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men to the king. So what happens is, and I'm going to go out on the limb and say this isn't the first time that this happens, because the Babylonian kingdom was outrageously wealthy. King Nebuchadnezzar loved building stuff that's historically documented outside the Bible, that he loved building these gods and these whatever it is that he's building. And so I believe that this isn't the first time that he's built something and told everybody to worship it. I believe that this probably isn't the first time that he's had a dedication service and told everybody to come and worship it. And Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael don't show up. And I believe it's one of them things that Nebuchadnezzar knew, but he didn't say nothing because he really likes these guys, because these are his go-to guys when he needs a dream interpreted, whenever he needs something done. These are the wisest guys that he has. And so I think Nebuchadnezzar knew, and just through some historical context and textual clues, he knew. And they knew he knew, but he didn't say anything. But in this case, it gets brought up to him. Someone comes and tells on Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael. They say, hey, those three that you like so much, they're not worshiping your gods. And I'm going to tell you, that's going to happen to you. God had blessed Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael. God poured blessings out on them. We have read in the sermons before, in the chapters before, how God has blessed these guys, and God made favor on them through the chief of the eunuchs. God gave them favor with Nebuchadnezzar. They were wiser than everybody else. They were better looking than everybody else. God had blessed these guys. And you know what happens when God starts blessing you, or God starts blessing somebody? People get jealous. And that's exactly what happened. People got jealous. And I'm going to tell you, church, I'm going to tell you, brother and sister, if you are living through a season of blessing in your life, don't be surprised if people get jealous. Don't be surprised if there are those who want to tear you down, who want to bring you down a notch. Don't be surprised if there are those who dislike you just because you're a Christian. Don't be surprised. The Bible tells us that's going to happen. So be ready for it. One of the types of fires that we will face. So as we read on, first thing I want to point out about this, well, I'll read on. Verse 14, Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image that I have set up? Now, if you are ready, at the time you hear the sound, the horn, the flute, the lyre, the psaltery, in the symphony, with all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the image which I have made, then good. But if you do not worship, you will be cast immediately in the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you from my hands?" The first thing that I want to point out about this story, about their fireproof faith, is their fireproof faith didn't hinge on their circumstances. Like I said before, I wholeheartedly believe that this isn't the first time that they played hooky during a dedication to an idol. I believe this is something that they probably picked up along the way and said, we can just not show up for these things and it won't be an issue. But their circumstances changed. Someone called them out. So now they're in a position where they've got to make a choice. And that change of circumstances didn't change their heart, didn't change their faith. Also, you notice that Daniel is never mentioned in this chapter. Chapter 3 of the book of Daniel is the only chapter in the book of Daniel where Daniel is never mentioned. I believe he was out of town. Daniel at this town is pretty much the number 2 guy under Nebuchadnezzar. He is Nebuchadnezzar's most trusted advisor. I believe more than likely Daniel was out of town at this time doing an errand for Nebuchadnezzar, which would be a perfect time for someone to accuse his 3 friends. But something I want to point out about that, why that's significant, is that these 3 guys' faith wasn't hinging on Daniel. Daniel, from the beginning of the book of Daniel, he has been the ringleader of these guys. Whenever these guys do something, it's Daniel's kind of been, hey, let's do this. He's kind of been their leader, kind of an unspoken leader. Well, their leader's not here. Their leader's not around, and they still do the right thing. And I'm going to tell you, I've seen Christians, I've known Christians who will build a relationship with a pastor. I have an awesome relationship with a certain pastor, and then that pastor goes on to another church, or specifically, and I've spent some time as Methodist, and some of my family are Methodist. They get moved to another church, which is even more heartbreaking. They get moved to another church, and my pastor's gone. And I'm going to tell you, I've been through this. I've lived through this. I've been that person who just loved a pastor. And that pastor was moved. And the next pastor wasn't the same. And then it caused me to go through a season where I was out. I was not with the body of Christ. It caused my faith to waver. But real fireproof faith, just like Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, it doesn't matter if the pastor's there. It doesn't matter if that pastor that you have this awesome relationship is there or is not there. You have that faith. Your faith is in God. It doesn't matter about that family member that you look up to, and it's good to have Christian mentors. but your faith isn't hinging on that Christian mentor. It's good to have that mentor as that Sunday school teacher, but your faith isn't hinging on that person. Your faith is an entity of its own. To have that true fireproof faith. Faith isn't sitting inside of a set of circumstances. Our faith is regardless to what circumstances surround us, just like it was for Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael.
Amen.
Verse 16. So Nebuchadnezzar just says this very arrogant statement that he's about to get a very profound answer to. And he says, and who is the God, lowercase g, who will deliver you from my hands? You about to find out, big boy. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. Nebuchadnezzar, these young men say, you know what? You already know the answer. You already know if we're going to bow down and worship. You've seen it before. You've seen the stand that we've taken before. You already know. You already know. And this is another reason this statement, O Nebuchadnezzar, you know the answer to this, is another reason why I believe that Nebuchadnezzar has, up until this point, up until it gets called out, has been turning a blind eye to them not showing up for these things and not bowing down to his gods. And now he's put in a position where he has to address it. He says, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this is the case, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. And he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image that you set up. These guys took that stand. These guys looked that fiery furnace in the face, and had the faith to say, we will not worship your gods. We will not bow down before the image that you set up. And this is what happens. Nebuchadnezzar's angry. He's furious. He tells his guards, turn up that furnace 7 times hotter than what it typically is. Bound these guys, tie them up, and go throw them in there. He says that he gets one of his mighty men of valor to escort them to the fiery furnace. And before they even get there, it kills the guy that's trying to take them down in there. And then they fall down into the furnace. And the second thing I want to point out about this is found in verse 24. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished. He rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? And they answered and said to him, to the king, true, O king. Look, he answered, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And from the 4th of them is like the Son of God. Whew. The second thing I want to point out about this is that God never promised to keep you from the fires. God will keep you through the fires. God's going to, whatever it is in your life that you're going through, God's never promised you a smooth sailing. God's never promised us an easy life. But what God did is he promised that he would keep us through those fires. He would keep us in the furnace. And I'm going to tell you, no matter what you're facing, no matter how hard it is, no matter how bad it is, even if you right now feel 1,000,000 miles away from God, God is keeping you through the fire. God is walking amidst you. When you feel the furthest away from God, that is when God is drawing the closest to you. And I remember as a child, and I'm sure I remember seeing a child in my grandmother's house. She had that famous poem up on her wall about footprints in the sand and how beautiful that is. And that man said, God, when I went through my hardest, there's only one set of footprints. He says, that's right, that's when I was carrying you. Man, it's exactly what God does. But why? Why, God? I get it. I get it you're through the fire. I get it you're keeping me through the fire. I get it you're here with me. But it still hurts. I'm still hurting. Why do I have to go through this? This is the reason why. It says Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, did we not cast 3 men bound in the fire? He said, look, he answered, I see 4 men. You know what? If you're going through those fiery furnaces, or if you've been through the fire, if you've been through the storms in life, if you're hurting, if you don't know why do I have to face this? Why does these things have to happen to me? The reason that you might have to go through this is because there might be, when you are going through the fires of life, people see Jesus. People see God. Nebuchadnezzar looked into the fiery furnace and he saw God. It was a witness to them. And I'm going to tell you, there's no greater witness than a Christian exercising fireproof faith. There's no greater Christian than a witness, than a Christian going through things in their lives that would make most people consume them. And a Christian having that fireproof faith that where they're walking and they're talking and they're living out their faith. That is a great witness. Why am I having to go through this? Why am I having to go through this hurt? Why am I having to go through all these things? Well, I'm going to tell you why. One of the reasons why is because somebody that you love, somebody that's close to you, somebody that you have a relationship with, somebody that knows what you're going through is watching you. And they're seeing what you're going through. And they need to see Jesus. And maybe the only way they can see Jesus is through the fire that you're going through. Amen. And I'm going to tell you, church, it's hard to praise Jesus. It's hard to praise God through the fires. But we got to think about those who are watching. We got to think about those who are watching our lives and watching the way we handle things. Because they look into that fire. They know what you're going through. They know that it would break most people, but they look into that fire and they're astonished and they're saying, I see 4 people. I see something in their lives that's making them, they're walking around free. They're in a situation that would consume most people, but they're free. How are they free? What is it? I want it.
Amen.
I want it. When you are going through those fires, people see Jesus in your life. The last thing I want to point out this morning is what fireproof faith is. We've talked about how your circumstances won't change your faith. We've talked about how people see Jesus, how people are there with, how Jesus is with you during those times, and people see Jesus during that time. Now, I want to give you the definition of what fireproof faith is. In verse 17, it says, if that's the case, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known, O king, that we will not serve your gods, and we will not worship the image you have set up. Real fireproof faith is a but if not faith. In some translations, it says, even if God doesn't do this, I will not serve your gods. Even if God doesn't keep me through this, even if God allows awful things to happen to me, my faith will not. That is fireproof faith. That is the attitude of no matter what happens in this life, I will not waver because I'm not living for this life. I'm living for the next life. That's how we have that type of faith. Even if I die from the cancer, even in this life, if I die from cancer, if I'm sick, even if in this life I'm sick and I die, in the next life, my body will be made perfect. Even if in this life nothing goes right, I'm not living this life, I'm living for the next life. Even if in this life, I'm brokenhearted and I have tears rolling down my face, we know that in the next life, every tear will be wiped away. Even if in this life, my house gets foreclosed on, I go broke, I don't have a penny in my name, we know that in the next life, we have a mansion just over the hilltop. Amen? Amen. And whenever we are living a fireproof faith, we're not living for this life, we're living for the next life. So we can say that prayer. We can say, even if nothing works out in this life, I'm not living for this life. I'm storing up treasures in heaven for the next life. Amen. Lord, we come before you right now. We just want to praise you.